There is a specific, hollow kind of exhaustion that no amount of sleep can ever fix. It doesn't arrive because you have worked too hard, stayed up too late, or carried too many worldly responsibilities at once. It arrives from something much quieter and infinitely more corrosive. It comes from the heavy toll of caring about things that the people around you abandoned long ago. Noticing the flicker of sadness behind a stranger's forced smile. Remembering the minute details of a colleague's life, only to realize they have long forgotten they ever shared them with you. You carry the emotional residue of conversations that others discarded the moment they walked away. And in the silence of your own mind, you replay the tension no one else dared to acknowledge. Act 1. The miscalibrated self over the passing of years. A terrifying question begins to take root in the soil of your spirit. Is something fundamentally broken within me? You wonder if the problem isn't the world at large, but simply your own inability to stop feeling too much. You have been told to stop taking things so personally, to grow thicker skin, and to stop trying to save everyone. Those who offer this counsel often believe they are being kind, but embedded within their advice is a devastating assumption that the depth at which you experience life is a defect, a malfunction that mature adults are supposed to outgrow. They never, however, tell you what you are supposed to replace that depth with. Carl Jung stood apart from modern psychology in his radical understanding of this suffering. He recognized that the psyche does not produce meaningless signals. When something in your soul aches, or when you reach toward the world with a consistency that defies logic and self-preservation, it is not mere noise. It is vital information. It is the self attempting to speak through the only language it knows. Yet the modern world speaks in a different tongue, a language of transactions, outcomes, and clean, balanced emotional exchanges. In this marketplace, the person who keeps giving without calculating the return doesn't look noble. They look broken. The first wound does not come from those who fail to care for you. It comes from the slow, corrosive realization that your most natural inclination, that which feels least negotiable inside, the very thing the world demands you minimize. You begin to carry a contradiction that possesses no resolution. Be yourself, but be less of yourself. Care, but not too much. Feel, but within acceptable limits. This contradiction does more than confuse you. It splits you. Act 2. The persona and the internal erosion. Jung identified this split as the tension between the persona and the deeper self. The persona is that version of you which learns the acceptable frequency. It observes how others operate and calibrates itself to mirror them. It learns to say, "I'm fine," with a perfect degree of casualness. It learns to swallow the impulse to ask, "Are you okay?" because it knows the answer is unwelcome. The persona is not a lie. It is a survival strategy. It is the self doing what it must to exist in environments that actively punish depth. But survival and wholeness are not the same thing. The cost of maintaining this mask, year after year, room by room, is a kind of internal erosion that most people won't notice until the damage is already absolute. This damage accumulates in the places you stop looking in, the way you apologize before speaking, or in the slight, instinctive flinch when someone asks what you actually want. Wanting something for yourself feels dangerous, as though claiming your own desires might disqualify you from the role you have been forced to play. You remain in relationships that drain you, not because they nourish your spirit, but because leaving would require you to acknowledge a painful truth. Your care was never being matched. For someone who feels deeply, admitting this lack of reciprocity isn't merely disappointing, it is disorienting. It restructures your entire history. If the love wasn't mutual, then what was it? Every memory of trying harder, of showing up more fully, becomes evidence of something you are not yet ready to name. So, you absorb the pain, file it beneath the surface, and continue. Act 3. The shadow of resentment. Jung would have recognized this trap immediately. He wrote extensively about what happens when a person identifies too completely with one aspect of themselves. When empathy and emotional attunement become not just something you do, but everything you are, the psyche loses its balance. Those parts of you allowed to feel anger, to say no, or to prioritize your own needs do not vanish. They are pushed into the shadow. The shadow of the person who cares too much is not cruelty. It is resentment. It is not the loud, confrontational kind, but a quiet, bitter sediment that builds in the gap between what you give and what you receive. You grow irritated with the people you chose to care for, not because they have committed a great offense, but because they simply continued being themselves while you continued exceeding yourself. You resent them for not noticing what it costs you, and then you resent yourself for feeling that resentment. For most people, the shadow contains aggression or vanity, but for you, it contains your own needs. This is the particular cruelty of the empathetic soul. You have exiled the completely ordinary, human experience of wanting rest without earning it, and wanting attention without making yourself useful first. You learned, likely in childhood, that you were loved for what you provided, not for who you were. That equation is still running in the background of your mind. Climax, the beginning of individuation. The world confirms this broken equation, because people who care too much are extraordinarily convenient. They anticipate, they adjust, and they absorb tension so others do not have to. Because this labor wears the face of warmth rather than effort, it is never acknowledged as a service. No one thanks the thermostat for keeping the room comfortable. They simply expect it to continue. You confused being needed with being wanted, and that confusion has cost you years of your life. But there is a moment, arriving differently for everyone, when the exhaustion finally outweighs the fear. It is the moment you sit in a room full of people you have poured your life into and realize, with physical clarity, that not one of them truly knows you. They know the function you perform. They know the warmth you provide. But the actual you, the one with edges, hungers, and a long-buried anger, is a stranger in their own life. This moment is not a breakdown. It is the genesis of individuation. Individuatuat is not about becoming selfish. This is the great misunderstanding that keeps the soul trapped. The alternative to caring too much is not caring too little. It is the ability to care without disappearing. It is the capacity to remain open to the world while remaining fiercely loyal to yourself. This is the hardest work a person will ever do, for it means tolerating the discomfort of being misunderstood. Conclusion: to grow into your wholeness is to grieve the relationships that cannot survive it. When you stop negotiating your existence and start occupying your own shape, some people will call it coldness. They will say you have changed, and they will mean it as an accusation because you have stopped being useful. Let them. The people who remain those who meet your real edges with curiosity, rather than contempt, are the ones capable of real connection. You were never wrong for caring. You were only wrong about what it required you to lose. As Jung suggested, the greatest act of courage is not to overcome the self, but to become it fully. Stop trimming the parts of your soul that others find inconvenient. You were not too much. You were simply in rooms that were too small. Your journey toward wholeness begins now. If this resonated with your own path, consider subscribing to our channel as we continue to explore the depths of the human psyche.